the screen. Yep. Unless there's any preference, we can kind of just walk through some of these that we're able to show you all today. Um, just kind of starting from that top of the list. The first one talks about workflow and kind of defining, how we can drive it. When we look at something like our one of our processes for our case and referral, we use what we call a due diligence case. This is where there's a certain amount of time that the customer has to pay before we get into really the more enforcement driven activities. And this is the workflow behind the scenes that is pushing this case status. So you see this little path here. These are the statuses that it can go through, but it's also pushing out correspondence in the form of notices or reminders. One of the things that you could also do with this is email. You can generate tasks off of it. You can track all the related history, comments, all those kinds of things. It's also able to be updated with things like a payment plan. So as this is running and it's looking at the number of days since there was a previous update, activities like a payment plan or maybe some other type of like appeal or dispute, those types of events can also update this and do things like drive it to be on hold, for example, giving them that break while they are making payments. But I can just to show an example here. So right now our debt is not enforceable, but I can just go in here and click through, as well as setting our completion date, and our notice date is in the past. So this is going to now update our due diligence case, push the debt status now to enforceable, and we should also see our root case. Since there's only one debt on it, it's going to look at the debt status and push the case workflow now through to enforcement. And so this then can kind of be out there ready for the next process in the workflow to pick it up and let it get moved or passed to the next event or eligible for the next thing, whatever that might be. OCA referral, legal actions, those types of activities.
May I ask a question real quick? May I step in real
Yeah.
quick? So what
Yeah,
we
go
just
ahead.
seen you do on an individual case basis, what we just saw you do on an individual case basis is you set forth an action that came in, and then through that workflow, you set up for that action to trigger it to a new status or you were able to change the status of the account, and then you could have another action or go into something else. What about if it wasn't on an individual case basis? What if we brought in a situation like a new file into the system that's going to update tons of debtors information, and we have new skip trace information available to a collector? Can you set it up by like a huge batch or something? How do you do that?
Yep. So a lot of things we can set, based on the update to the record, given its move to a new status, or there's some degree of new information, we can let the workflow run and evaluate the record, and based on the rules that are configured, push it to the appropriate status, or do things like create tasks for review, or move it to a new work list, things like that. Yep, certainly. Whether it's done with automation or any type of manual action. Yep,
Okay,
you can
that's
do all
what I
those
was going
things.
to ask. So you can
Yep.
have workflows set up in your background that'll lead your staff, so on and so forth, through a
Yep.
major import of something, or you can do it a workflow on an individual basis through the account itself manually. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and automation's really the goal here, trying to keep people, without having to interact with them on a daily basis.
Okay.
So there's workflow there. There's also so one of the other pieces here to highlight, after the workflow runs and moves the cases around or assigns tasks, this is where our list views come into help. Say it qualifies for a specific status, or it meets, the specific criteria for being, a high dollar or high risk case, or maybe something within the, debtor record or that financially responsible entity, it qualifies them as having, an invalid phone number, or, something there that might be something to send out for the skip trace and get some better information. We can push those things to list views, to work and review, or also with reporting. And then we can also go in and look at things like tasks that are out there. One of the nice things with the tasks is the ability to update them, and also you can create follow-up and reoccurring tasks if you need to, depending on, every Friday review this file. Things like that are an option. You can let automation create these. That's another thing handy out of those workflow type rules. You can create an assignment rule to create a task, assign it to a group, assign it to a queue.
Okay.
The queues are nice because within that team, everyone can pull from the queue or be assigned from the queue. And there's a lot of different capabilities there for assignment.
Okay.
Any questions there? I'll pause here.
No, just to recap, so workflows can be, like you said, either by automation or manual. They can be set up for batches or for an individual. Sounds like workflows can be attached to queues, different actions. Yeah, it seems like it's a nice feature with
Yep.
lots of opportunity. Yeah.
Yep. And one of the components here that lets us track all of that is called the activities. Let's see, I think this is my one. Nope, that's not it. Department of Labor. Yep.
Can I pause you really quick?
Yep, go ahead.
Because Don's going to be wanting to look at this. Don, those are all the different debt types. So those are all the referring debt or agencies.
Yes,
right
these
there.
would be your agencies. Yep.
And that's what that would look like, Don. I just wanted you to look at that before he moved. Sorry.
Yep,
Okay.
no problem. Yep. So this is the entity, referring
remember
debt.
this list. Okay.
Yep. You can, and so under these, you would have your debt types, and then they are related to the cases. It's nice for that relationship for reporting. You can pass along a report that shows, what's been referred, what's been collected, what's outstanding.
And
Yep,
that's
go
for
ahead.
this particular, any debt under this particular debt code or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Anything under this agency that's been referred. Yep.
May I ask, I don't want to get too far off the list, right? Because you guys are going down the list. So from this view, if I can see, this is how you set up I see you set up your agency to your debt code. You have all your debt types associated with this contact or agency. So where do you set up like all the interest rates maybe that are applicable to this debt code, or fees that are applicable to this debt code, or?
So anything that you would need to assess We could create that off of the debt type itself. In our accounting module, we actually have kind of a more detailed view into the debt, where we have a more options for anything related to like fees or fines or rates. This is where a lot of our true accounting entries and our financial transactions are going to post. And so we can use these amounts to drive insufficient payment or late pay penalty, our interest rates. This is where kind of our parameters live for things like that.
And this is where you would also put your commission, your fees and stuff like that?
Yep.
Commissionable fees?
Anything like that. Yep.
What if we had a split in fees? Right now we have two different type of fees. We not only have the PCA fee, but we also have the SSOA fee, and no collection system that we've been in so far has been able to support that second fee. Is that something that we're able to do within this system, or will it still need to be something contained outside of the system?
So how would that be? Like, what's the difference, I guess, in how they're assessed?
So the SSOA gets a 5% commission, and the PCA currently gets a 20% commission. So if $100 is collected, depending on if it's a make whole or if it's pulled from the total original balance, the debtor would pay $100, and maybe 25 of that would go to commissions. $5 would go to shared services, and $20 would go to the PCA.
So it's just kind of allocating the money as it comes in to the right bucket, essentially.
Yeah.
So that, I think we could address that. We do have configurable accounting rules. I'll give you a little example here. So this is a payment transaction that posts, and we have a breakout of our different accounting components. We have the traditional principal, fee, penalty, interest, and then there's some other kind of baseline. So like this is a cost recovery fee that is a percentage of the principal, for example. It sounds like it would just be a different component here that gets paid off at a certain point in time, or as a percentage or a fixed amount, something like that. So right now, this split, I think it's like a 10% goes to the cost recovery fee, and then the rest is to the principal. This is our one of our baseline allocation settings. But for your fee or penalties there, it might just be a separate component type that gets a certain amount of money.
So
it
what
would be,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Everett.
Okay, so the cost recovery fee amount, could there be two, one at 20 and one at 5?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's just another line item underneath there.
You can see there's a separate OCA fee amount and the cost recovery fee. The CR fee could be the SOA component, and then the OCA fee could be the OCA component.
Okay. That makes sense. Dawn, am I allowed to ask a question? And I am really not trying to take you off of task.
No, you
but I
got
got really, yeah, I know. So Dawn and I are always, we think pretty much alike. And I got really excited at seeing something on a prior screen that I really want Dawn to see. If we can go back to the prior screen. Before that, it was the debt code overview, I think. It had it showed all the different debt types underneath the debt. More high level. Sorry.
Here?
Yeah. The debt types with 3. What happens when you click that little new button? Because I'm about to get really excited.